Hi, Sheila with Creative Aging. So last week we did this watercolor painting that could be turned into just something to hang up for the holidays, or you could turn it into a Christmas card. So we're going to continue doing some card making. And so this one's a little bigger, so you could, someone could frame it and hang it up. And I went ahead and just wrote the words joy in bubble letters and painted on the inside of that, which I didn't have the last time. So you can of course leave it blank if you just want it to be a painting, or you can turn these into cards. And so this is just an extension of what we worked on last week, and we're gonna do a couple other little ideas. And I already have them drawn out on my watercolor paper. I just wanted to show you two different ways of doing this. So this one I just cut my paper down to, kind of a postcard size. And then that way I could buy generic envelopes if I wanted to mail it, or if I would just want to give it to somebody that you live with, or just a friend you might see over the holiday season. So you can just cut it and draw on it, and then we're going to paint on top of this. And of course this is watercolor paper. Or you can fold it if you actually want to make it a card and write on the inside. And so this is just watercolor paper that I cut to whatever size I wanted, and I folded it in half. And then this way I have envelopes that this will fit. So definitely think about, the size of an envelope that you might want to put these in before you cut it. And you can look online if you want some ideas of little images that would be fun to paint. And you might want to do a few of these. That's why I'm doing this kind of in 2 sessions, because I feel like this would be something that you could work on for a few days and make a few of these for Christmas. And so these drawings are simple. Like this poinsettia, you just start with some circles, and then you're just doing big shapes around the circle. So you start with 5 circles, and then you just basically do kind of a leaf shape and go. You don't have to be perfect. I mean, these are, obviously not balanced. That's what's going to look more interesting. And then we're going to paint it, red and green. And then I already wrote the words, so we can either do that with pen or we could do it with paint. And then there's the little snowman, which we don't paint with white very often. So I'm going to start with this one. So I'm going to unfold it. So I already folded it, but I'm going to unfold it while I paint, just so I don't get water on the inside. And so it's just a very, very basic drawing. Just a couple circles, and make sure to draw light. We don't want the pencil marks to be the focus of these. We just want to give ourselves a starting point and, make this easier. So don't draw hard. And you need a couple of small brushes. I'm going to use, let's see. I guess I'll use this brush, and then I already have my little tiny brush in my water. So of course you need another point brush like for the last one. And we're going to do this little snowman. We're going to use the white, which we never use. I never use this white. So I'm forcing myself to do something new too. And so I'm going to put white on it, and then I'm probably going to switch and put a little bit of this like purple. So I'm just going to kind of wet my snowman wherever I want it to be white, and I'm just going to paint white. And in a minute, I'm going to just use the tiniest bit of kind of a purple blue. So I just wanted to get that wet on my brush. My sad brush, it just broke. Well, I use these till the very end. And actually, I delivered all my really good brushes to you guys. So I am home with my sad brushes falling apart on me. And you could use a light blue, or you could use that kind of light purple. Whichever you want. Just make sure to water it down quite a bit. I don't want that much color. I want a lot of water. But you don't want so much water that it's going to get outside your drawing either. So I'm just barely going to dab it to where there's not a lot of paint on it. And then I want to mix it in while it's still wet. with the white. And I'm going to spread that all out. And actually, I'm going to use more water. I don't want it to be quite that purple all along it. I just want it to kind of have a hint of color. And I'm leaving the scarf because I'm going to do the scarf a little pattern. Okay, so that's just got a hint of color. So it's not going to match completely with the paper. And then let's do the same thing. We can go ahead and go around the nose. So you have the nose drawn in, go around it, because I don't want that orange and that purpley color to mix. So, and then do the same thing, a lot of water and just barely dabbing it in the purple. And if you have, you can do, practice on your paper if you have something underneath or a paper towel. You just want to make sure it's not going to be too dark up here, especially. You don't want it to have too much water on it either. So I'm just a tiny, tiny bit of color. And I'm going to leave this to dry. I don't want to do the scarf quite yet because there's a lot of water and I don't want the detail of the scarf to bleed into the little snowman body. So I'm going to do these little sticks, do them in brown, and I'm going to use my small brush. And so like these kind of things can be pretty quick. So you can make a few cards, which I think all of you will like doing. I know every year everyone's always asking to do cards, and so this would be fun, and any friend would be ecstatic to get an actual hand-painted card. And it's amazing because you can actually write personalized messages, and people will be shocked that you actually made them a card. And so this is gonna, take your time here. So I'm using my little point brush. Good practice. I have a little bit of water and a lot of brown, so I just did not want much water here because we're drawing with our paint. And if you want to go ahead, actually no, we're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna let this dry all the way and I'll switch to the poinsettia. So this is where you can work on multiple ones. So I draw 2 different cards because this is such small detailed work. We cannot afford to let colors bleed into each other. It will be just so much harder to fix. So I suggest, see how wet that is? Take a pause, switch to another little image. And then on this one, you can do lots of reds and pinks and whatever color you want for your poinsettia. We'll start with this bright red. And so these, this is, make it your own style if you want it to be really bright, if you want it to have a lot of water and be kind of faded. Up to you. Okay, so there's my drawing. I know it's really light. I hope you can see this okay. I'm gonna move up a little bit, so hopefully you can. So we're just basically painting just inside of our lines. And you can, switch colors, if you want to do, say you want to do one that's just lighter red. Let's go ahead and go back here and do a lighter red. You don't want them to all look the same color. You also definitely want to have your paper towel to blot here and there. And this is a good project to just kind of let the water do its own thing. You want these to look like handmade paintings, you know? So it's good to just let the watercolor do its magic. These are not meant to look like acrylic. A lot of people try to make watercolor paints look like acrylics, and you just don't need to do that. They're supposed to look like water. So just start getting color in there. I'm going to move this just in case I drip water. And I like this smaller brush. I'm going to switch to another brush. And you could do some pinks if you want. Switch to a little pink. And you can mix some of the colors or just do some of it pink, some of it red. So I'm taking this pink and I'm putting it in this red. I want these two to make a new color. And this is really faded, so I'm gonna make this a little red. So don't be afraid to mix your reds and pinks. And just keep going, filling in your poinsettia. So right there, see how close those colors are to each other? I'm gonna add more red because I don't want them to just blend into each other. So I want a little bit of difference in the colors. So either make it darker or lighter. And you'll notice because this is detailed work, your hands probably will shake a little bit more. Even mine do. And that's, you know, that's normal. It's okay. And if, you know, these lines aren't perfectly straight, then it'll probably just look more interesting. Don't stress about it. And so I'm going to add a little more pink over on this side. So just play with the pinks and the reds. If you want to get in with the darker red too, but just do a mixture, make your own colors. Make some of them light, some of them dark. And if you want to, you know, kind of go circular motion just to change the look of it, do that, you know, whatever you're liking. Just start getting some color on there. And then think about, so I made a few of these that are going to be green. So think about some of the poinsettia shape, or the leaves or the petals. Make some of them green and some of them red. So I actually drew leaf lines so I knew which ones to do green. And you can always add more color. I think it's good to just kind of get your first coat of color on there, and then we'll let it dry, and then we're going to work on the snowman again. And this is where I'm going to switch to a darker. I want some of these back ones to just have a hint of the dark red. So right there, I want this to be separated so these petals don't completely run into each other. And if that gets too dark, then you can definitely add some more red. So even back there, I'm going to add a little dark. And that's really dark. As you see, I'm going to make sure to blend it in. It's still wet. So it's good to keep going back and forth between these colors while it's still wet, because you can kind of use it and make it lighter or darker and move it around. When it's dry, it's a little harder. I'm cleaning my brush in between, and then I'm just gonna continue between these three colors. I'm just doing pink, the red, and the burgundy. And then and maybe turn it. You don't want to make sure you're not dragging your hand in any of this wet paint. And these little brushes, they don't hold much water, so you're gonna have to go back and forth quite a bit to continue getting more water on your brush. All right, I'm gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna go back to my snowman because I don't want that red and green to blend, bleed into each other. So this would be a good time to work on our snowman again. Let's do some, we'll just do a little red, and we could either do red and white, a little red and white striped. Hats, you can do whatever colors you want. I'll make it festive though. Definitely need a tiny brush for this part. You could do red and green, red and white. We could even make it furry. I'll do little stripes though. So don't try to make these too straight. And then let's do this scarf. So curve it with the scarf. So it's fabric, so obviously it's going to be curved. And then it's probably going to switch direction down here. And let's do a little bright red up here. So I'm kind of dotting it to make it look fluffy. Figure out if you want this to be a solid color. Do you want that to be stripes the other way? I think I'm going to do it a solid color. So I'll do that all red. So you're just filling it in. And if you want to switch to the green, we'll do that here in a minute. Like I said, you don't want the green and the red to go together. So you could leave it red and white, or let's go ahead and work on the nose and the face and the little buttons. And we can decide on the green in a minute. We're also going to want to change water. When you switch with that red and green next to each other, you need to make sure that water's really clean. You don't want the red and the green to blend together. It's going to get muddy and ruin your little painting. And these are so tiny. They're way harder. When you work this small, it's harder to fix little mistakes because everything is more noticeable when you're working small. So a lot of people think, because you're doing small, it's going to be easier. It's actually not, because everything matters that much more, like every little mark. And that's why we need to really make sure everything's dry before we move to a new color. And that's why I'm making you work on two at the same time. So I did the little orange, and then I can do some black. Do not leave much water. This, I would test it. Do some dots just to make sure. that there's not much water. And make sure this is dry completely, and it is. So if you do black, a little black button, and it's not 100% dry, that black is going to bleed all throughout your snowman, and there's no way you're going to be able to fix it. So just make sure that this is completely dry before you do it. And just little circles. So I'm dotting in the same spot a few times. Okay. Now if that is too dark, you're welcome to blot it with a paper towel or leave it. It depends on what look you want. And then let's do some green in the hat. I'm going to switch to fresh water. I'm going to, before I switch to fresh water though, I have black on this brush, but I want this brush because it's the only good point brush I have right now. Rinse it off in this dirty water first, okay? Because it's gonna change. It's gonna see. You can see the water got way dirtier with that black in it. Then move to your clean water because I want this brush to be clean before I switch to the green. And I'm gonna use one of the light greens. You can use whatever green you want. I'm gonna do this one. Now, this is another part that you do not want a ton of water. So test it before. Make sure that, I even just like to wipe some of the water off and then get more color on it. And you want that color just on the little tip, and then you can go in and add your green. And this does not, if there's white in there, that's fine. You don't have to get perfectly close. Because I have not much water on this brush, I'm going to have to redip in my color, and I might need to get more water here in a minute because I wiped it almost all away. But it's better to start this way to be safe than get too much water and then have every single thing run together. You don't want that. You'll be so upset because you're going to have to start over. Okay. I'm going to test it again, make sure there's not too much water, and then let's go in this scarf. And look at this. There's even a droplet of water. I don't know if you can see it right there on my brush. If I continue to paint with this and that drop of water gets on my snowman, because I'm working with light colors and the bright red's so bright, it really will kind of ruin this little painting. So I'm making sure to get that off. You really do, with small pictures, you just have to be more mindful of every single little thing you do. And I know these are simple, but they're still tiny. So I'm letting the white show through. I'm not going to be too worried about having white in there. I like the paper. I'm going to add more green though. I think it kind of looks like more like a fluffy scarf right down there. Okay, and so now, look what I did. I accidentally forgot this little back part of the snowman. I need to fix that, obviously, but I'm not going to do it now because this might be a little wet. So this is where you switch back. Start working on your poinsettia. And, you know, I'm just going to paint with water for a minute. I just want some of these lines to I just want it to look a little more faded. I really want this one to look like watercolor, like to be obviously watercolor paint. So I want to have this faded. There we go. And right there, there's a little too much white showing. This one needs more color. I'm gonna figure out what color I want. I'll add more bright red and then I might go switch to dark red. So you need, sometimes with watercolor paint, you really need it to dry because you're gonna be able to see what you're doing. You don't know sometimes how watercolor is gonna dry, what color it turns to. So that's why I think it's good to just do kind of the base coat and then come back and work on it a little later. Okay, and we're gonna add some dots in the center. And then let's do some green. I'm gonna get rid of this right here. And see, I'm taking this red and I just want it to kind of, I want to be like a hint of color behind some of these. Like maybe it's behind there too. This also fades some of the lines that maybe aren't so perfect. So I'm just taking this and using just a hint of the red behind. Okay, let's switch to green. And our little snowman's almost dry over there, so I'm gonna work on that again in a minute. So see, that red's dry, so I'm just doing a little bit of green. You can switch and do dark green and light green here. Okay. And let's switch back. There's a lot of water on here. And so let's switch back and let's finish up our snowman. And now, make sure there's not any extra color on your brush before you do this. Now, I don't mind if this is even lighter than the rest of my snowman, but all right. So now this one could be done. If you want to add anything else, you sure can add it. If you want to add more color. And so, you know, make sure to flatten this after it's dry if you need to flatten the card. So you can put that under a book, flatten it all the way. And I don't want to touch that poinsettia, so I'm going to go back to this one. So we did this the last video. And it was the same kind of techniques, like using the point brush, lots of, like a simple drawing to start, and then lots of layers of greens. So it takes a while to build up. And then, you know, if you wanted to do any kind of message, you could do, you know, leave it blank or do grateful or joy or happy holidays, whatever you want. You can just draw with pencil, like bubble letters, and fill it in with paint. Or, like with this poinsettia, you can actually, so I can either paint over that, or if you want to do a more simple version, you can just, you can use Sharpie. So if you want to be really easy, you can just draw your Merry Christmas and then go over with Sharpie. Let's go ahead and I'll paint that. So you can do either. It's up to you. You have to be really slow with painting letters. And pause every so often. If you need more color, you're going to have to do it. I don't know how many of you do calligraphy, but if you do calligraphy, you'll probably be good at painting letters. Just kind of a matter of like how you hold your brush and taking time. Okay, so that wasn't too scary. Just be careful not to touch it. Because if you touch that, it is going to run it everywhere. So just let that dry. Yeah, do either. Like if you want to make it more simple, you know, you can definitely do your bubble letters and just paint inside of it like we're doing. Or you can actually write with your tiny point pen, or get an ultra fine point Sharpie, which I know a lot of you have, and do that. And then, so when you start, when your poinsettia comes together, when it's drying, you can go back in and maybe draw some veins on there. So I'll just go in with a darker green for the leaves. And this is where you really see how wet it is there. I'm not touching my picture. So just be careful, maybe hold it still. So kind of like the last project we did, you just maybe want to have some darker parts of your leaf. So here they all are, pretty much dry. I touched up just a couple things on the snowman, just added a little bit of texture on the end of the scarf. And then the poinsettia, after looking at it for a little bit and letting it dry, I thought it needed some white. So today was a good day to kind of really experiment with the white watercolor paint. I don't think we've ever used it in a video, so it's good when you mix it with other colors. So like that snowman, if you want it to just look white but with a hint of shadow, you know, a little bit of blue and a little bit of the white, actually a lot of the white and a little bit of the blue. And then after the poinsettia dried, I decided I needed just some white to give it some shadow and texture, and I think it helped out a lot. And so at this point, you know, I could put this on an envelope, write a little message, or write a message in it first, and then put it in an envelope, give it to someone. If you wanted to do this bigger, you could make that a painting and you don't have to write Merry Christmas. Or you could kind of send this as a postcard and write a message on the back. And you can also glue this on top of cardstock if you wanted. So if you wanted to make a card and just have this be the top, you could glue that on cardstock to give it a border. And then of course this one, you know, is ready to hang. You could frame it and hang. All right, see you next week.